Imagine this. Two armies charging into battle, horses thundering across the field, swords and cannons ready to strike. On one side, we see Alexander the Great leading his companion cavalry, fearless and unstoppable. On the other, Napoleon Bonaparte commands his imperial guard, bold and brilliant. Two men, two empires, one big question. Who was the greatest conqueror in history? Was it Alexander, the king who never lost a battle? Or Napoleon, the emperor who changed Europe forever? Today, we're going to find out. Let's dive into their incredible stories and see who comes out on top. Here's something amazing. Alexander and Napoleon were so different, but also so alike. Did you know Alexander named over 70 cities after himself? He really loved his name. Meanwhile, Napoleon, as a teenager, wrote a romance novel. Yes, a love story. Both of them became military commanders before they were 20 years old, but their lives happened 2,000 years apart. That's a long time between two legends. Now, listen to what they said. Alexander once told his army, "I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion." He believed a great leader makes all the difference. Napoleon had a different idea. He said, "Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools." For him, nothing was too hard to achieve. So, what makes a conqueror the greatest? Was it Napoleon's clever strategies that beat his enemies, or Alexander's brave heart that won every fight? In this video, we're going to compare their empires, their leadership, and the mark they left on the world. Get ready for an epic journey through history. And a fun way to learn English, too. Let's start with their biggest moments. Part 1. The Highlight Reel. Let's jump into the action with the highlight reel of Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte, two of history's most incredible empire builders. Picture this. Maps stretching across the screen, showing lands growing bigger and bigger as these two conquerors march forward. We see Alexander's empire explode from Greece all the way to India, a massive adventure that took just 10 years. Then we switch to Napoleon, his armies sweeping through Europe, changing the way people lived with every step. These are the moments that made them legends, and we're going to explore their greatest achievements, the lessons they teach us, and some exciting English words to help you tell their stories. First, let's talk about Alexander. He was a king who didn't just sit on a throne. He rode into battle and conquered the world. Starting in Greece, he took his army across mountains, deserts, and rivers, all the way to India. In just 10 years, he built one of the biggest empires ever seen. His soldiers fought huge battles, like the one at Gaugamela, where he beat an army much larger than his own. But Alexander didn't just win wars. He spread Greek culture everywhere he went. people started speaking Greek, building Greek-style cities, and sharing ideas. We call this Hellenism, and it changed the ancient world forever. Alexander was an empire builder who left his mark on history, showing everyone what ambition can do. His story teaches us a powerful lesson. Lead from the front. He didn't hide behind his army. He fought right there with his soldiers, swinging his sword and shouting orders. That's why they followed him anywhere. Now, let's move 2,000 years forward to Napoleon. This man didn't just conquer lands. He conquered ideas. He started as a soldier in France during a wild time called the Revolution, when people were fighting for new ways to live. Napoleon rose fast, leading armies to victory after victory. One of his most famous battles was Austerlitz, where he tricked his enemies and won a huge fight against two powerful kings. But Napoleon wasn't happy just winning wars. He wanted to make Europe better. He created something called the Napoleonic Code, a set of laws that gave people more rights and made things fairer. Even today, many countries use ideas from his code. And here's a fun moment. He didn't wait for someone to crown him emperor. He took the crown and put it on his own head. Napoleon's big lesson is this: change the rules of war. He used cannons and artillery in new ways, surprising his enemies and winning battles nobody thought he could. Both of these men changed the course of history. Alexander took a small kingdom and turned it into a giant empire, full of Greek culture and new cities. Napoleon took a messy, broken Europe and gave it modern laws and a fresh start. They were born to rule, each in their own time, and their tactics, the smart plans they used to win, still amaze us today. Think about Alexander charging with his cavalry, fast and fierce, or Napoleon moving his cannons to blast through enemy lines. Their ambition, that big dream to do more, pushed them to the top. And what they left behind, their legacy, still shapes our world. Let's learn some English words to talk about them. First, we have empire builder. That's what Alexander and Napoleon were. People who made huge kingdoms out of nothing. Next, there's legacy. That means what you leave behind after you're gone, like Alexander's cities or Napoleon's laws. Then, we have tactics. That's the clever way they planned their battles, like a game of chess with soldiers. Another good one is cultural exchange. Alexander brought Greek ways to new lands, mixing ideas with the people he met. And of course, ambition, that fire inside them to keep going, no matter what. You can use phrases, too, like change the course of history. That means they turned the world in a new direction. Or try born to rule. It's perfect for two men who seemed made to lead. Picture Alexander on his horse, Bucephalus, racing across a battlefield, dust flying everywhere. His empire grew so fast, It's hard to believe. He was only 32 when he died, but he'd already done more than most people could dream of. His soldiers loved him because he was right there with them, not safe in a palace. He ate the same food, slept in the same tents, and faced the same dangers. That's what lead from the front really means, showing your team you're in it together. Now, imagine Napoleon standing on a hill, watching his cannons fire. He didn't just fight, he thought 3 steps ahead. At Austerlitz, he pretended to be weak, tricking his enemies into attacking the wrong spot. Then, boom! His army crushed them. That's change the rules of war, using new ideas to win in ways no one expected. Their achievements are so inspiring. Alexander didn't stop at Greece. He beat the mighty Persian Empire, crossed into Egypt, and kept going until he reached India. He even founded a city called Alexandria, which became super famous. His empire didn't last long after he died, but his ideas did. Greek culture mixed with local ways, creating something new and exciting. Napoleon's story is just as big. He took over most of Europe, France, Italy, Spain, Germany, and made them follow his rules. But the Napoleonic Code wasn't about control. It was about fairness. It said everyone should have a chance, no matter who they were born as. That idea spread far beyond his empire, even after he lost his last battle. Let's think about their lessons again. Alexander's lead from the front is all about courage. He didn't send his men to fight alone. He was the first one into the danger. That made his army strong and loyal. Napoleon's change the rules of war is about thinking differently. He saw cannons not just as big guns, but as a way to surprise everyone. He moved them fast, used them smartly, and won battles that looked impossible. Both of them had ambition that wouldn't quit. Alexander wanted the whole world. Napoleon wanted a new world. And they didn't let anything stop them. Not mountains, not rivers, not bigger armies. So, what do you think so far? We've seen Alexander and Napoleon at their best, building empires and leaving legacies that still matter today. Their tactics were brilliant, their courage was huge, and their stories are full of surprises. But how did these legends get started? Where did they come from? And what made them so special? To answer that, we need to go back, way back for Alexander, and not so far for Napoleon. Let's rewind to their origins and find out how 2 young men became the greatest conquerors of all time. Part 2. Background of Alexander. Let's travel back in time to ancient Macedonia, a rugged land of mountains and warriors, where Alexander the Great began his incredible journey. Picture a young boy with big dreams, standing in a dusty courtyard, listening to one of the smartest men in the world. That boy was Alexander. and his teacher was Aristotle, a famous philosopher who taught him about science, ideas, and how to think like a leader. Alexander wasn't just any kid. He was the son of King Philip II, a tough ruler who made Macedonia strong. But when Alexander was only 20 years old, everything changed. His father was assassinated, killed by someone close to him, and suddenly Alexander became king. Can you imagine? At an age when most people are just starting out, he had a whole kingdom to lead. From the very beginning, Alexander showed he was special. One of his first big moments came with a famous challenge called the Gordian Knot. There was this huge, messy knot in a town he visited, and people said whoever could untie it would rule the world. Many tried and failed. It was impossible. But Alexander didn't give up. He looked at it, thought for a moment, and then, slash, he cut it with his sword. That's what untie the impossible means. Finding a bold, simple way to solve a problem no one else could. It was a sign of what was coming. Soon after, he set out to conquer the mighty Persian Empire, the biggest power of his time, ruled by a king named Darius. Alexander didn't have as many soldiers, but he was fast and clever. He won battle after battle, taking cities, crossing deserts, and never stopping. By the time he was done, his empire stretched from Greece to India. An unbelievable adventure. Alexander wasn't just about fighting, though. He had a gift for diplomacy, which means making friends and deals with people. When he took over a place, he didn't always destroy it. Sometimes he let the local leaders stay in charge if they promised to follow him. He even married a Persian princess to bring people together. That's how he conquered hearts and minds, not just with swords, but with smart ideas. He also loved prophecies, stories about the future. In Egypt, he visited a temple where they told him he was the son of a god. True or not, it made his soldiers believe he was unstoppable. And he kind of was. He used siege tactics, too. Big attacks on cities with walls, like when he captured Tyre by building a bridge over the water. Nothing could hold him back. Let's learn some English words from Alexander's story. First, there's heir. That's what he was. The next in line to be king after his father. Then we have philosopher, like Aristotle, someone who thinks deeply about life. Prophecy is a prediction about what's coming, like the one that said Alexander was divine. Siege means surrounding a city to capture it, and diplomacy is working with others to keep peace or make plans. You can use phrases too. Untie the impossible is perfect for Alexander cutting that knot. It's about solving something tough in a surprising way. And conquer hearts and minds means winning people over, not just beating them in a fight. Think about young Alexander for a moment. He grew up in a wild place, full of warriors and horses. His dad taught him how to fight, but Aristotle taught him how to dream. When he became king, he didn't wait around. He gathered his army, his famous phalanx of spearmen and his fast cavalry, and started marching. The Persian Empire was huge, with millions of people and a giant army. But Alexander didn't care. At battles like Issus and Gaugamela, he charged right in, leading from the front. His soldiers saw him risk his life, and it made them brave too. He was only 20 when he started, but he acted like he'd been a king forever. That's what made him different. He wasn't afraid to take on the world. One of his coolest stories is about his horse, Bucephalus. When Alexander was a boy, no one could tame this wild horse. It was too strong, too crazy. But Alexander noticed something. The horse was scared of its own shadow. So he turned it toward the sun, calmed it down, and rode it. Even as a kid, he was smart and fearless. That horse stayed with him through all his battles, carrying him across continents. It's a perfect example of how Alexander turned problems into victories. He didn't just conquer lands, he conquered fear, doubt, and anything in his way. Now, let's zoom in on that Persian Empire he beat. It was ruled by Darius, a king with gold, palaces, and an army that seemed endless. But Alexander was faster. He moved his troops like lightning, striking before Darius could get ready. At Gaugamela, the Persians had chariots with blades on the wheels. Terrifying. But Alexander's men opened gaps in their lines, let the chariots pass through, and then attacked. He won again. After that, Darius ran away, and Alexander took over everything. Cities like Babylon and Persepolis, full of treasure. He didn't stop there, though. He kept going into India, fighting battles in jungles and crossing rivers. He was unstoppable until his soldiers got tired and said, "Enough!" Even then, he only died because he got sick, not because anyone beat him. Alexander's background shaped him into a legend. Growing up with a warrior king for a dad and a genius like Aristotle for a teacher gave him the perfect mix of strength and smarts. Becoming king at 20 could have scared him, but instead, it lit a fire inside him. He believed he was meant to rule, and he made it happen. That Gordian knot moment? It wasn't just about a rope. It was about how he thought. If something's too hard, don't waste time. Cut through it. And his diplomacy kept his empire together, at least while he was alive. He mixed Greek ways with Persian ways, Egyptian ways, Indian ways. He built cities like Alexandria in Egypt, which is still famous today. His story is all about a young man who took a small kingdom and turned it into something huge. So, that's where Alexander came from. A land of warriors, a life of learning, and a moment of destiny When he became king, he conquered the impossible, not just with his army, but with his mind and his heart. Next, we'll jump forward to a very different place and time, to an island called Corsica, where another young man was getting ready to change the world. Napoleon's story is coming up, and it's just as exciting. Part 3. Background of Napoleon. Now, let's sail across the sea to a small rocky island called Corsica, where Napoleon Bonaparte was born. Picture a sunny coastline with waves crashing against cliffs. It's beautiful, but it's not a place you'd expect an emperor to come from. Napoleon wasn't born rich or royal. He was an outsider, a boy from a modest family in a land ruled by France, but not really French at first. His story is all about rising from nothing, using his brain and his bravery to become one of history's greatest leaders. It's a tale of revolution, ambition, and a man who rewrote the rules, not just for himself, but for a whole continent. Napoleon came into the world in 1769, right after Corsica became part of France. His family wasn't poor, but they weren't powerful either. His father got him a chance to study at a military school in France, and that's where everything started. Young Napoleon was quiet, serious, and a little strange. He didn't fit in with the fancy French boys, but he was smart, especially with numbers and maps. He loved reading about war and history, dreaming of big things. When he was just 16, he became an artillery officer, someone who uses big guns like cannons. That might not sound exciting yet, but wait. It's how he changed the world. France back then was a mess. People were angry, fighting for a revolution to get rid of the king and make life fairer. Napoleon saw his chance. In 1793, when he was only 24, he got his first big moment at a battle in Toulon. The French were trying to take back a city from enemies, and no one could figure out how. Napoleon had an idea. Use the cannons. He put them on a hill, aimed them perfectly, and blasted the enemy ships away. It worked, and everyone noticed him. That's when he started to rise, fast. He wasn't born to rule like a king's son, but he was self-made, building his power step by step with his own hands. A few years later, Napoleon became a general, leading armies across Europe. He won battles in Italy, Egypt, and more, always using his artillery in new ways. But his biggest moment came in 1804, when he made himself emperor. Picture this: a grand ceremony in a huge church, with gold and music everywhere. The Pope was there to crown him, but Napoleon didn't wait. He grabbed the crown and put it on his own head. That was his way of saying, "I don't need anyone to give me power. I take it myself." It was a symbol of his whole life. A man who started with nothing and climbed to the top. Let's learn some English words from Napoleon's story. First, there's revolution. That's what was happening in France. A big change where people fought for new rules. Then we have ambition, that burning wish inside Napoleon to be more than he was. Artillery means those cannons he loved, the weapons that won his battles. Reforms are changes to make things better, like the laws he created. And self-made is perfect for him, someone who builds their own success. You can use phrases too. Rise from nothing is about starting small and becoming great. And rewrite the rules means changing how things are done, just like Napoleon did with war and power. Think about where he came from. Corsica was a tough place, far from the fancy palaces of Paris. Napoleon spoke with an accent, and people laughed at him for it. But he didn't care. He worked harder than anyone. At military school, he studied late into the night, learning how to move armies and win fights. When the revolution came, he didn't pick a side at first. He watched, waited, and then jumped in when the time was right. That's ambition. Knowing what you want and going for it, no matter what. At Toulon, he showed he wasn't just a dreamer. He could make things happen. Those cannons weren't just guns to him. They were tools to win. Napoleon's rise wasn't easy. France was falling apart. People were hungry. The king was gone, and enemies were attacking from all sides. But Napoleon loved a challenge. In Italy, he took a small, tired army and turned it into a winning machine. He moved fast, surprised his enemies, and won battles against bigger forces. People started calling him a hero. Even when he went to Egypt and lost, he came back stronger. He had this charisma, this special way of making people believe in him. Soldiers followed him because he promised them glory, and he delivered. That moment when he crowned himself emperor is so powerful. He was 35 years old, and he'd gone from a nobody to the ruler of France. The painting of it shows him in a red robe, looking proud and strong. It wasn't just about being emperor. It was about showing the world he controlled his own destiny. He didn't need a king or a priest to make him great. That's what self-made really means. You build your own path, even if no one believes in you at first. And he didn't stop there. He kept fighting, taking over countries like Austria, Spain, and Germany, spreading his ideas everywhere. But Napoleon wasn't just a warrior. He was a thinker, too. He saw that Europe needed new rules, so he made the Napoleonic Code. It wasn't perfect, but it was a big deal. It said laws should be fair, not just for the rich. It gave people rights they didn't have before, like owning land or choosing their jobs. He built roads, schools, and a better government, reforms that lasted long after he was gone. That's why his story isn't just about battles. It's about changing how people live. He rewrote the rules, not just for war, but for life. Imagine him as a young man, standing on that Corsican shore, looking out at the sea. Did he know he'd be an emperor one day? Maybe not, but he felt something big inside him. He wasn't tall. People say he was short, though that's not quite true. But he acted like a giant. His soldiers loved him because he talked to them, not down to them. He'd walk through the camp, muddy and tired, and say, "We're in this together." That's how he rose from nothing. By never giving up. By turning every loss into a lesson. And by dreaming bigger than anyone else. So, that's Napoleon's background. A boy from an island who became a man the world couldn't ignore. He didn't have a famous teacher like Alexander's Aristotle, but he taught himself. He didn't inherit a throne, but he made one. His artillery wasn't just weapons. It was his way of saying, "I'm here, and I'm changing everything." From Toulon to that coronation day, he showed what ambition can do. Next, we'll put him side by side with Alexander and see how their military genius stacks up. Get ready. It's going to be epic. Part 4. Military Genius. Let's dive into the heart of what made Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte such incredible conquerors. Their military genius. Picture this. 2 battlefields lighting up the screen. One ancient and dusty, the other cold and snowy. On one side, we see Alexander at Gaugamela, his soldiers in tight rows, spears gleaming, horses charging like thunder. On the other, Napoleon at Austerlitz, cannons booming, troops moving like pieces on a chessboard. These 2 men didn't just fight wars, they mastered them. Their strategies, their quick thinking, and their bold moves turned them into legends. Today, we're going to compare how they won their biggest battles and learn some English along the way. Get ready. It's going to be exciting. First, let's talk about Alexander. He was all about speed and adaptability, moving fast and changing plans to fit the fight. At Gaugamela in 331 BC, he faced the Persian king Darius again. The Persians had a massive army, some say over 100,000 men, with chariots, elephants, and endless soldiers. Alexander? He had maybe 40,000. It looked impossible, but he didn't care. He used his famous phalanx, long lines of men with huge spears, to hold the enemy in place. Then he sent his cavalry, fast horses with riders, to smash through the sides. He didn't just sit back. He rode right into the battle himself, aiming straight for Darius. The Persian king got scared and ran away, and his army fell apart. That's what strike fast, strike hard means. Hit your enemy so quickly, they don't know what's coming. Alexander adapted too. When those scary chariots charged, he opened gaps in his lines, let them roll through, and then attacked from behind. Genius. Now, let's jump to Napoleon at Austerlitz in 1805, his masterpiece. He was up against two emperors from Austria and Russia, with a bigger army than his. But Napoleon was tricky. He pretended his army was weak, leaving a hill empty to tempt the enemy. They took the bait and attacked, splitting their forces. Then Napoleon struck. He sent his men up the hill at the perfect moment, cutting the enemy in two. His cannons blasted away, and his soldiers moved fast to surround them. By the end, the Austrians and Russians were running, or sinking, because some fell through icy lakes trying to escape. This is divide and conquer in action. Split your enemy apart and beat them piece by piece. Napoleon didn't just fight. He outsmarted everyone, using the land and timing like a weapon. Both of these men were brilliant, but in different ways. Alexander loved speed. He moved his army across mountains and deserts faster than anyone thought possible. His phalanx was like a wall of steel, and his cavalry was like lightning. Together, they crushed bigger armies. He was decisive, which means he made quick, strong choices. At Gaugamela, he saw Darius was the key, so he went straight for him, ending the battle fast. Napoleon, though, was a planner. He modernized armies, making them faster and smarter with better logistics, getting food and supplies where they needed to be. At Austerlitz, he didn't rush in. He waited, tricked his enemies, and then hit them hard. His cannons weren't just for noise. They were his secret weapon, placed perfectly to win. Let's learn some English words to talk about their genius. First, there's strategy, the big plan they made to win. Alexander's strategy was speed. Napoleon's was surprise. Then we have phalanx, that special line of spearmen Alexander used. Logistics is about moving things like food and weapons. Napoleon was a master at this. Flank means the side of an army, and both men loved attacking there to catch enemies off guard. And decisive is about making fast, clear decisions, something they both did perfectly. You can use phrases, too. Strike fast, strike hard, fits Alexander's wild charges. Divide and conquer is all Napoleon, splitting his enemies to win. Think about Gaugamela for a moment. Alexander was only 25, facing an army 3 times his size. The Persians had everything: numbers, gold, even elephants. But he didn't panic. He studied the land, saw where Darius was, and made his move. His phalanx held strong, like a shield, while his cavalry swung around the flank. When Darius fled, the battle was over. It wasn't just strength, it was smarts. Alexander knew speed would confuse the Persians, and it did. He didn't waste time. He struck hard and won. That's why he never lost a battle. His military genius was unstoppable. Now, picture Austerlitz. It's freezing, foggy, and Napoleon's army is smaller. The Austrians and Russians think they've got him, but he's one step ahead. He gives up that hill on purpose, knowing they'll attack it. When they do, he's ready. His men charge up, his cannons fire, and suddenly the enemy is trapped. He used the fog to hide his moves, and the hill to split their army. It was like a trap snapping shut. Napoleon didn't just fight with soldiers. He fought with his mind. His logistics kept his men fed and warm, so they could move fast when it mattered. That's why people call Austerlitz his greatest victory. Alexander and Napoleon both had tricks up their sleeves. Alexander's adaptability let him win anywhere. Deserts, mountains, jungles. He changed his plans if he had to, like when he built a bridge to attack Tyre. His cavalry charges were so fast, enemies couldn't keep up. Napoleon modernized war itself. He made armies march quicker, used cannons like never before, and turned every battle into a puzzle he could solve. At Gaugamela, Alexander's decisive charge broke the Persians. At Austerlitz, Napoleon's divide-and-conquer move crushed two empires. They didn't just win, they rewrote how wars were fought. Imagine being a soldier watching them. For Alexander, you'd see him on his horse, Bucephalus, leading the way, dust flying, shouting orders. His speed kept you moving. You couldn't stop, because he didn't. For Napoleon, you'd hear the cannons roar and see him on a hill, calm and sharp, pointing where to go. His plans were so clever, you'd trust him even when things looked bad. Both made their armies feel unbeatable. Alexander's phalanx and cavalry were old school but perfect. Napoleon's modern army, with fast marches and big guns, was the future. Their strategies weren't just for their time. They're still studied today. So, who was the better military genius? Alexander, with his lightning-fast attacks and fearless charges, or Napoleon, with his tricky plans and cannon power? It's hard to say. They were so different, but so brilliant. Alexander conquered more land, faster than anyone. Napoleon beat bigger armies with smarter moves. Their tactics, speed for Alexander, surprise for Napoleon, show two sides of genius. What do you think? Could anyone stop them on the battlefield? Next, we'll look at how they led their men, not just in war, but in spirit. It's going to be another epic showdown. Part 5. Leadership Style. Now that we've seen Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte win their battles with military genius, let's look at something just as important: how they led their men. Leadership isn't only about plans and weapons. It's about inspiring people to follow you, even when things get tough. Picture this: Alexander sitting around a campfire, sharing bread with his soldiers, laughing and talking like friends. Then, imagine Napoleon pinning a medal on a young soldier's chest, telling him he's the future of France. These two conquerors didn't just command, they connected. Today, we're going to compare their leadership styles, see what made their armies so loyal, and learn some English to describe it. Get ready! It's a story of heart and courage. Let's start with Alexander. He was a leader who led from the front, always right there with his men, not hiding in a tent. In every battle, like Gaugamela or Hydaspes, he rode his horse into the fight, swinging his sword and shouting orders. His soldiers saw him take the same risks they did, and it made them love him. He didn't act like a faraway king. He ate the same food, slept on the same ground, and faced the same dangers. Once, when his army was dying of thirst in a desert, a soldier offered him a helmet full of water. Alexander could have drunk it. He was thirsty too. But he poured it out, saying, "If we can't all drink, I won't either." That's what lead by example means, showing your team you're in it together. His charisma, that special spark, made people believe in him. He inspired loyalty so strong, his men marched across the world for him, from Greece to India. Now, let's switch to Napoleon. He led differently, but just as powerfully. He was charismatic too, with a way of talking that lit a fire in people's hearts. He gave big speeches before battles, telling his soldiers they were making history. At Austerlitz, he said, "One sharp blow and the war is over." And they believed him. But Napoleon also used something called meritocracy. That means he rewarded talent, not titles. If you were a poor farmer's son but fought well, he'd make you an officer. He handed out medals, promotions, and even land to soldiers who stood out. Once, he created the Legion of Honor, a special award for bravery, and gave it to anyone who earned it, rich or poor. That's reward talent, not titles, in action, giving people a chance to rise. His men adored him because he made them feel important, boosting their morale, their spirit to keep going. Both leaders had a magic touch with their armies, but their styles were unique. Alexander's loyalty came from being one of them. He shared their hardships, hunger, cold, long marches, and never asked them to do what he wouldn't. His charisma was wild and bold, like a lion leading a pack. He inspired his men by jumping into danger first, showing them no fight was too big. Napoleon built loyalty through respect and rewards. He wasn't always in the front line. His genius was in planning. But he knew how to make every soldier feel like a hero. His speeches lifted their morale, and his merit system gave them hope. Alexander led with his body. Napoleon led with his words and ideas. Let's learn some English words to talk about this. First, there's charisma. That special charm both men had to win people over. Loyalty is what their soldiers felt. that deep trust and love. Meritocracy is Napoleon's way, promoting people for skill, not birth. Morale means the energy and confidence of a group, and both kept it high. Then there's inspire, to fill someone with courage or excitement, which they did every day. Use phrases, too. Lead by example is Alexander sharing that water or charging into battle. Reward talent, not titles, is Napoleon giving medals to ordinary men who shone. Think about Alexander with his soldiers. He wasn't just their king, he was their brother. On that long march to India, they crossed rivers, fought in jungles, and ran out of food. But he never complained. Once, after a battle, he walked through the camp, muddy and tired, checking on the wounded. His men saw that and thought, if he can do it, so can we. His charisma wasn't fake. It came from his heart. He'd tell stories of Greek heroes, making his soldiers feel like legends too. That loyalty kept them going, even when they were far from home. They followed him because he inspired them, not because he forced them. When he died, they wept like they'd lost a friend. Now, picture Napoleon with his army. He knew how to talk. Oh, did he? Before a battle, he'd ride up on his horse, look them in the eye, and say things like, "Soldiers, you are the glory of France." It wasn't just words. He meant it, and they felt it. His meritocracy changed lives. A boy who started with nothing could end up a general if he was brave enough. At one camp, he sat with his men, handed out bread, and pinned medals on their coats himself. That boosted their morale so much, they'd cheer his name in the middle of a snowy march. He inspired them by showing they could be more than they were born as. Even when he lost, they stuck by him because he'd given them pride. Alexander's leadership was raw and real. He didn't need fancy speeches. His actions spoke louder. In India, when his men were exhausted and wanted to go home, he climbed a wall in battle to prove he wouldn't give up. He got hurt, but it showed them his heart. That's why his loyalty lasted. His men felt like his family. Napoleon's style was polished and smart. He used his charisma like a tool, painting a picture of a better future. During the Italian campaign, he told his ragged army, "You have nothing, but I'll give you everything." And he did. Victories, rewards, respect. His men fought for him because he made them believe in themselves. Imagine being there. With Alexander, you'd feel the heat of battle, see him ride past, and know he'd never leave you behind. His lead by example style was simple but strong. He showed you how to be brave by being brave himself. With Napoleon, you'd hear his voice over the wind, feel a medal in your hand, and think, I can be great too. His reward talent, not titles idea, gave you a reason to fight. not just for him, but for your own dreams. Both kept morale high, but in their own ways. Alexander shared the struggle. Napoleon shared the glory. So, who was the better leader? Alexander, with his fearless, hands-on style that built a family of warriors, or Napoleon, with his clever words and fair rewards that turned soldiers into heroes? It's tough to choose. Alexander inspired loyalty through sweat and blood. His men crossed the world for him. Napoleon inspired it through hope and honor. His men rebuilt Europe for him. Their charisma made them giants, and their styles shaped their empires. What do you think? Next, we'll see what they left behind, their legacies, and how they still touch our lives today. Part 6. Legacy. We've seen Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte fight their battles and lead their armies. Now, let's look at what they left behind. Their legacies are like footprints in history, showing us how they changed the world long after they were gone. Picture this: a map lighting up with cities named Alexandria, then flipping to show countries still using Napoleon's laws today. These two conquerors didn't just win wars, they built something lasting. Today, we're going to compare their legacies, see how their ideas outlived their empires, and learn some English to talk about it. It's a big story, so let's jump in. First, let's explore Alexander's legacy. He conquered a huge chunk of the world, from Greece to India, in just 10 years, and he didn't stop at taking land. He spread Greek culture everywhere he went, something we call Hellenism. Imagine Greek temples popping up in Egypt, people speaking Greek in Persia, and new ideas mixing with old ones. He founded cities, over 70 of them, and named most of them Alexandria. The one in Egypt became a superstar, a place of learning with a giant library that held the world's knowledge. That's what build to last means: creating things that keep going. Alexander's empire fell apart after he died at 32. A dissolution because he didn't plan for who'd rule next. But his influence didn't fade. Greek language and culture stuck around for centuries, shaping art, science, and even how people thought. Now, let's move to Napoleon. His legacy is different. It's less about land and more about laws. He conquered most of Europe, but his empire didn't last long either. He lost it after about 15 years. What did last, though, was his Napoleonic Code. This was a set of rules he made to make life fairer. It said things like, everyone gets a chance in court, and your family name doesn't decide your future. Countries like France, Belgium, and even parts of South America still use versions of it today. That's an enduring legacy, something that keeps working. Napoleon also built infrastructure, roads, bridges, schools, and set up a bureaucracy, a system to run things smoothly. His ideas inspired revolutions too, as people saw they could fight for better lives. For him, ideas outlive empires fits perfectly. His laws kept going when his crown was gone. Both men left marks, but in their own ways. Alexander's legacy is cultural. He mixed Greek ways with local ones, creating a new world of ideas. His cities, like Alexandria, became centers of trade and learning, real influence that lasted hundreds of years. But his empire's dissolution was quick. Without him, it split into pieces. Napoleon's legacy is practical. His reforms changed how governments work, and his infrastructure made life better for millions. His empire fell too, but his ideas didn't. They spread, inspiring people to demand rights. Alexander built with culture. Napoleon built with systems. Both changed history, but one's legacy feels ancient, the other modern. Let's learn some English words to describe this. First, there's infrastructure, the roads and buildings Napoleon made. Bureaucracy is the organized way he ran things. Influence is what Alexander spread, his culture touching faraway lands. Dissolution means breaking apart, like their empires did. And enduring is something that lasts, like Napoleon's laws. Try some phrases too. Build to last is Alexander's cities standing strong. Ideas outlive empires is Napoleon's code living on. These words help us see how big their legacies were. Think about Alexander's world after he died. He was only 32, and his empire stretched across 3 continents. But he didn't have a son ready to take over, so his generals fought and split it up. That's the dissolution. His kingdom crumbled fast. Still, what he left wasn't small. Those Alexandrias weren't just dots on a map. They were alive with people trading, studying, and mixing cultures. In Egypt's Alexandria, scholars wrote books that shaped science and math for ages. Greek became the language everyone used, like English today. His influence wasn't in a single empire. It was in the air, in the way people lived and thought. He built to last, even if his rule didn't. Now, picture Napoleon's Europe after his fall. He lost at Waterloo in 1815, and his empire shrank back to nothing. But his Napoleonic code didn't disappear. In France, it replaced old, unfair laws with clear ones. Everyone equal before a judge. It spread to places he conquered, like Italy and Germany, and even jumped across oceans to Latin America. That's enduring. His ideas stuck around. He also left infrastructure, wide roads in Paris, better ports, schools for kids. His bureaucracy made governments run like machines, not messy kingdoms. And his story inspired revolutions. People in Haiti, Spain, and beyond said, If he can change things, so can we. His legacy wasn't just what he built, it was what he started. Alexander's legacy feels like a burst of light. He raced across the world, leaving Greek seeds wherever he went. Those seeds grew into cities, libraries, and a culture that lasted 300 years after him. But his empire's dissolution shows a weakness. He didn't plan ahead. His influence was huge, but it was scattered, like echoes of his voice. Napoleon's legacy is more like a foundation. His empire fell, but his reforms were bricks that others built on. His infrastructure and bureaucracy made countries stronger, and his code gave people rights they fought to keep. Alexander's mark is in history books and ruins. Napoleon's is in laws and streets we use today. Imagine walking through their legacies. In Alexandria, Egypt, you'd see where Alexander's dream still whispers. Old stones from a city he named. His culture mixed with Egypt's, Persia's, India's, creating something new. It didn't need his empire to survive. It lived on its own. In Paris, you'd walk on Napoleon's roads, past buildings he planned, under laws he wrote. His ideas didn't fade. They grew, shaping how we think about fairness and government. Alexander's influence was wild and free. Napoleon's was steady and deep. Both built to last, but in ways that fit their times. So, whose legacy is greater? Alexander's, with its cultural explosion that reached across centuries, or Napoleon's, with its practical reforms that still guide us? It's hard to pick. Alexander spread Greek ways so far, we still feel them in art and words, like philosophy from his teacher Aristotle. His empire dissolved, but his spirit didn't. Napoleon lost his throne, but his ideas outlived it, inspiring people to stand up and build better lives. Alexander's legacy is a gift to the past. Napoleon's is a tool for the present. What do you think? Next, we'll switch gears and use their stories to practice English. Get ready for some fun learning. Part 7. English Learning Focus. We've traveled through the epic stories of Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte, their battles, their leadership, and their legacies. Now, let's use their adventures to make your English even stronger. This part is all about learning, practicing, and having fun with words and patterns. Since my channel is Learn English with Stories 365, I want you to feel excited about speaking like a conqueror. Picture this. You're sitting with me, maps and quotes on the screen, ready to try some English that's perfect for A2B1 learners. We'll compare Alexander and Napoleon, talk about ambition, and play with their famous words. Let's get started. It's going to be a blast. One of the best ways to learn English is by comparing things, so let's practice a pattern. While Alexander, Napoleon, This helps us see how they were different, and it's easy to use. For example, try this. While Alexander rode into battle with his soldiers, Napoleon planned his attacks from a hill. See how simple that is? It shows Alexander leading from the front and Napoleon using his brain from a distance. Let's do another one. While Alexander built cities named after himself, Napoleon wrote laws that changed Europe. This compares their legacies: cities for Alexander, laws for Napoleon. You can try it too. Think about their stories. Maybe, while Alexander conquered Persia at 25, Napoleon became emperor at 35. It's a fun way to practice past tense and connect ideas. Now, let's talk about ambition. Both of these men had it in buckets. Ambition is that big dream to do something amazing, and we can use phrases to express it. One great phrase is, "against all odds." It means succeeding even when everything is hard. For Alexander, you could say, "against all odds, he beat the Persian Empire with a smaller army." For Napoleon, try, "against all odds, he rose from a small island to rule France." Another phrase is seize opportunity, grabbing a chance when it comes. Like this: Alexander seized opportunity when he cut the Gordian knot. Or, Napoleon seized opportunity during the French Revolution. These phrases make your English sound strong and exciting, just like their stories. Let's practice with some of their famous quotes, too. Quotes are short sentences, they said, and we can use them to play a fill-in-the-blanks game. Start with Alexander. "I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a..." What's the missing word? It's lion. He meant a great leader makes any team strong. Try it yourself. Say the quote and fill in lion. Now, Napoleon's turn is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools. The missing word is impossible. He didn't believe in giving up. Say it out loud. Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools. Fun, right? Let's do one more from Napoleon. One sharp, and the war is over. The word is blow. He said it before Austerlitz, meaning one big hit could win everything. Practice that one too. Here's how you can use these patterns every day. The while Alexander, Napoleon, trick works for anything. Try it with your life. While I study English in the morning, my friend plays soccer in the afternoon. It's a simple way to compare two things with while. For ambition phrases, think about your goals. Maybe, against all odds, I learned 10 new words today. Or, I seized opportunity when I watched this video. These make your sentences sound powerful and help you remember the conqueror's spirit. And quotes? You can change them. Take Napoleon's "Impossible is a word for fools" and make it yours. Difficult is a word for quitters. It's like you're a leader too. Let's play with more examples. Back to comparing. While Alexander crossed deserts to fight, Napoleon marched through snow to win. That's their military genius. Deserts for Alexander, snow for Napoleon. Another. While Alexander inspired his men with courage, Napoleon inspired his men with rewards. That's their leadership styles. Courage versus rewards. You try one. Think about their legacies. While Alexander, Napoleon. Maybe something like, while Alexander left cities behind, Napoleon left laws behind. Say it out loud. It's easy and helps you practice past tense verbs like rode, built, or wrote. Now, more ambition phrases. Against all odds is perfect when things are tough. Imagine Alexander at Gaugamela. Against all odds, he charged a giant army and won. Or Napoleon at Toulon. Against all odds, he used cannons to save the day. For seize opportunity, think of big moments. Alexander seized opportunity when he became king at 20. Napoleon seized opportunity when he crowned himself. You can use these for small wins too. Against all odds, I finished my homework. I seized opportunity when I spoke English today. They make you sound bold and ready to conquer anything. Let's do more quote practice. It's like a game. Alexander said, "There is nothing impossible to him who will." The word is try. Say it. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. That's his way of saying effort beats everything. Now, Napoleon. Victory belongs to the most. The word is persevering. It means never giving up. Try it. Victory belongs to the most persevering. A bit harder, but you've got it. Let's make it interactive. Fill this in. I am not afraid of an army of led by a sheep. It's lions. Say it and feel strong. One more is a word for fools. Shout, impossible, and you're channeling Napoleon. Why does this help? Comparing with while teaches you to link ideas. Great for speaking and writing. Ambition phrases like against all odds and seize opportunity add drama to your English, making it fun to use. And quotes? They're short, so you can memorize them. And filling in blanks helps you think fast. Plus, you're learning from two legends. Imagine telling a friend, "While I like pizza, you like burgers." Or, "Against all odds, I passed my test." It's practical and cool. And if you say, "Impossible is a word for fools," you sound like a leader. Let's wrap this up with a challenge. Make your own sentence comparing Alexander and Napoleon. while Alexander, Napoleon. Try an ambition phrase. Against all odds, I. And pick a quote to fill in. Maybe, victory belongs to the most. Say them out loud, feel the rhythm, and see how easy it gets. You're not just learning English, you're conquering it. Next, we'll finish with a quick conclusion, summing up their greatness and asking you to join the adventure. Ready to keep going? Brief conclusion. We've reached the end of our epic journey comparing Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte, two of history's most incredible conquerors. Picture this. Statues of Alexander and Napoleon standing side by side, fading into a bright subscribe button on the screen. We've explored their empires, their battles, their leadership, and the legacies they left behind. Now, it's time to wrap it up. Think about what we've learned and decide who was the greatest. Plus, I've got some fun questions for you to keep the conversation going. Let's finish this with energy and excitement. Here we go. Alexander shaped the ancient world like no one else. He took a small kingdom in Greece and turned it into a giant empire, stretching all the way to India. He never lost a battle, charging into every fight with his soldiers, spreading Greek culture wherever he went. Cities like Alexandria still echo his name, even though his empire fell apart after he died. Then there's Napoleon, who shaped the modern world. He rose from a little island to rule Europe, winning battles with clever plans and cannons. His Napoleonic Code changed laws forever, giving people rights and fairness that still matter today. Alexander built borders and culture. Napoleon built systems and ideas. So, who was greater? Was it Alexander, the unbeatable king of the past, or Napoleon, the emperor who rewrote the future? That's up to you to decide. What a ride it's been. We saw Alexander cut the Gordian knot and conquer Persia, leading his men with a lion's heart. We watched Napoleon crown himself and outsmart armies at Austerlitz, changing Europe with every step. Their stories aren't just about war. They're about dreaming big and making it happen. Did you enjoy learning English through their adventures? I hope you loved it as much as I did. If you did, hit that subscribe button right now. Join Learn English with Stories 365 for more tales like this. And tell me in the comments, which conqueror's story inspires you most? Alexander, with his fearless spirit, or Napoleon, with his brilliant mind? I can't wait to hear what you think. Let's keep talking. Here's a question for you. If you could follow one of these leaders into battle, who would you choose? Would it be Alexander, riding beside you, sword in hand, ready to take on the world? Or Napoleon, promising you glory and a medal for your courage? Think about it. Share your answer below. Here's another one. What modern leader reminds you of Alexander or Napoleon? Maybe someone brave like Alexander, leading from the front, or someone smart like Napoleon, changing the rules. Drop your ideas in the comments. I'd love to see what you come up with. Before we go, a little fun fact. Did you know Napoleon hated cats? Imagine him shooing one away while planning a battle. And picture Alexander complaining in a cartoon voice. Why does he get a code? I had a horse. They were legends, but they were human too. Their stories are full of lessons. Be bold like Alexander, be clever like Napoleon, and always chase your dreams. Want more epic battles and English practice? Next week, we're diving into Cleopatra versus Elizabeth III, two queens who ruled the world their way. It's going to be amazing, so don't miss it. Subscribe now, and let's keep learning together. So, that's it for today. Alexander shaped ancient borders with his sword. Napoleon shaped modern laws with his mind. Who was the greatest conqueror? You tell me. Hit like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if you're ready for more, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Which one inspires you, Alexander or Napoleon? And who would you follow into battle? Let's talk about it. See you next time on Learn English with Stories. 365. Keep practicing, keep dreaming, and I'll see you soon.